So hello, Håkan Nesser.
Hello, Leena.
How are you doing?
I'm pretty fine. It's so good to see you, but I would prefer to see you in real life.
Me
not
too.
this way. But we have this situation and we know why we're sitting like this.
Yeah. To the audience who are listening and watching us now, I have a great pleasure of talking to one of the world's best crime writers and one of my own favorite crime writers, Håkan Nesser from Sweden. Håkan has been writing crime novels since nearly 30 years, and before that published other kind of stories and poems too. And I wouldn't call you only a crime novelist, but maybe we can talk about it a little bit later. Where do we find you? I can see a bookshelf behind you. Are you at home or somewhere in a hidden place writing?
Yes, I am actually in my study where I work normally. It's on Gotland, where I live. Small place on Gotland, where I've been in a quarantine since beginning of March, but it's a luxury quarantine. And being a writer is probably the only job that doesn't really change with this plague that we're having. So I'm sitting where I used to sit and do my writing, really, on Gotland in Sweden. I'm sorry, I would prefer to be in Helsinki, but Gotland is not that bad either.
No, I don't think so. Did you have time to celebrate your big birthday before the corona hit you?
Yeah, I had time, sort of, because we went to South Africa. My birthday is in February, which is not a very good month. So my wife has promised that you will never have to celebrate your birthday in Sweden. So we went to South Africa and we know somebody down there. So I celebrated it down there.
Congratulations.
But you are still 28, is that fine?
Something like that. Yeah. No. Time hits hard. We have known each other since we were talking in 1999 when we first met in Reykjavik. Yeah. Over 20 years ago. One of the reasons we are talking now is your newest book in Finnish, Vasenkätisten seura. Die Venstrehentasförening, the left-handed league, I think the right English term is. And it's kind of, when you hear the name, it's kind of, what is this about? What is this kind of the left-handed league? Why did you choose this team?
But I think the title probably, I think because there is a Conan Doyle story, of course, called The Red.
Yes,
the red-haired, I think it's called, league, and I mean, of course there is no reason at all to have a club for people with red hair or for people with being left-handed. But so it might have. It's a few years ago since I started writing it, but it might have been that I had this idea that a left-handed league would. But then you need to find a story that fits the title. And so I started thinking about people being left-handed. And when I was a kid in the 50s, it was, I mean, if you went to school and you were left-handed, you had to. They forced you to change. I'm right-handed, but they forced you to write with your right hand, not your left hand. And I think it's because of the ink, because we wrote with ink. And if you put your you're too young to remember this, but we had ink pen, and if you write with your left hand from left to right, you blur it out with your hand. Yeah. So that's why they forced you to. So I'm not sure what the situation was in Finland, but in Sweden at least, I had a couple of friends who were left-handed, and they even tied their right hand behind their back to force them to write with their left hand. And the story begins with the same situation where two boys in the first class in this country that does not exist somewhere, it's Mardam country, we can call it, and they have a very, very tough teacher, and she forces them she puts a glove on their left hand to stop them. You're not allowed to use your left hand at all until the school day stops. And of course they can fight with it. It's boxing, but otherwise. So that idea came to me. But that is only the starting point of the story. It could have been any club really, because they formed the left-handed league when they were just like 7 or 8 years old. But it goes on until they are almost 20, when for some reason this club, they have a few other members, but then the club, they split up. And then there, of course, there is since it's a crime novel, there is a crime popping up, a couple of crimes.
Couple of crimes, yes.
Couple of crimes.
I have to say that it was kind of reading about the torture when I read about how those left-handed guys were treated, and I still think that in Finland in 50s, early 60s, we did have the same tactics. But luckily nowadays we do have scissors for the left-handers and etc. etc. But somehow those boys felt that they are outside the society because of something which was not really a handicap, not really, but it was
almost considered a handicap. Yeah.
In your book, there are 3 or 4 different time zones: the youth at 50s and 60s, and then the early 90s, and then the novels now is 2012, and you kind of juggle between those time zones. How did you construct the book? Did you have a very strict plan when you started at which time is coming now or something like that?
Well, of course, I knew that I had to have 3 different, at least, or 3 different time zones, because I wanted to bring the now in the book is, as you said, 2012, when Van Veeteren is celebrating. He's not celebrating, but he's turning 75 years old. Which is a problem for him, because I have been living on this earth for 3/4 of a century. Oh, that's a lot. So he has this kind of aging problem. But then, and he's not a police officer anymore. He's retired, but he retired in the middle of the series. He became an antiquarian, a book dealer instead. And the only thing that would, of course, bring him back to being a kind of a police officer would be that there would be an old case where something went wrong. So he has to go back and see he made a mistake. And because that was when was it? I don't remember. 1992. Yeah. And so he has to, and it turns out, of course, that by coincidence, he's going to celebrate. He says to everybody he's going to go. He doesn't want any celebration. He doesn't want a lot of presents of people giving him congratulations on his birthday. So he says that he's going to New Zealand. But in case he's just going away to a pensionat rather close to Mardam. But that happens to be very close to the place where this crime took place. So he has a very good reason to look into it again, and it's one of those cold crime thing. The cold crime is very popular, where a crime but also it's a cold crime where they think that they found the guy who did it, but apparently they picked the wrong guy. So he has to sort of, in his mind, reopen the whole story. Well, that was the structure that I had, and then, well, of course, I didn't know. Usually, I'm not sure about you, but I mean, to me, it's funnier to write if you don't really know what's going to happen. I mean, because it could happen a lot of things while you're writing, and it makes it funnier doing the writing. So I wasn't sure about the details when I started out.
Did you know who was the murderer when you started?
I think so. After perhaps not from the very, very beginning, but rather, I think. Yeah, I knew it after at least 50, 60 pages that this is a murderer. I mean, can you imagine? Did it ever happen to you that you come to the last chapter and you realize that, who did it? No. So I probably knew it pretty early.
It happened once that I realized that that person couldn't have been the murderer by herself, but she needed somebody to help him or her. But anyway, I usually also know who is the most guilty one or something like that. But of course, if you plan the whole thing beforehand, it's very dull.
It is very dull. Yes, isn't it?
Yeah, you don't
I couldn't find it.
Yeah, you don't surprise a reader if you don't surprise yourself, I guess.
Exactly. No, well put. Yeah, no. And I mean, every story has its own logic, I think. That what is happening is it has to do with logic, and perhaps you don't know it, but while you're writing, you realize that, well, it's like reading a story. I mean, it becomes more and more. The further you get into the book, it's more like reading than writing, actually. So At least that's what happened to me. Yeah.
But when I heard that in this Left-Hand League book, there will be not only one Veeteren coming back, but also Barbarotti, and they are meeting, and they will live in the same kind of place or fictional place. I was kind of, wow, how can he do that? How does he manage to combine these guys? Mission impossible, but where did you get the idea of doing that? Making those two legions meet?
Well, I think I had the idea because I mean, there has been, I don't know about you, but you never think about the demand from the audience or demand from the readers, but they've been particularly in Germany. I sell a lot of books in Germany, and they've been asking, couldn't you, every time you go on the Lesung, kind of where you are reading, people ask you, couldn't you write another book about Barbarotti, or couldn't you write another book about Van Veeteren? I mean, the last book before this one about Van Veeteren was it was out in Sweden in 2003 or something. So it's been a long time. And the last Barbarotti was out in 12 perhaps. So, and then because I had this idea that then suppose I could put both of them in the same book, then I would sort of kill two moths with the same blow or whatever. So,
well thought.
But I mean, you need to find a story where this is possible. So, and I think I did but I mean, they're not really working together because I mean, let's say 75% about the book is Van Veeteren, and then towards the end, it turns out that this crime has a connection to Sweden because Barbarotti, of course, works in Sweden. So there is a Swedish connection popping up around page, I don't know, 350 or something. And then Barbarotti has a look. And they have to go down to Mardam to have a discussion. But they don't really understand each other. I mean, they meet and in a way, Barbarotti solves the crime. But Van Veeteren, he can't even remember his name. What is it? Barbarotti. So his wife has to tell him that his name is Barbarotti.
Yeah.
So they don't really work together. They meet and they have a discussion and whatever, but they're sitting in the same place anyway.
I think their wives actually go along, or significant others go along better than the guys themselves. But Barbarotti, of course, he knows the reputation of Van Veeteren, and he knows that Van Veeteren never makes mistakes.
Exactly, never.
And that is you are very hard to Van Veeteren when you make him realize that he has made a very big mistake.
Yes, sure. And I mean, and he's very hard on himself. I mean, because I mean, he's retired, he's old, and he stopped being a police officer. He has stopped hunting criminals. So he's apart from his age, he's in a good mood. And then when I think it's in the first chapter that his wife says that Münster called. And Münster is a police officer from his former life, and he realized, why on earth is Münster calling me? And then he comes to his antiquariat the next day and presents this new fact in this old case that Van Veeteren supposedly, together with Münster, solved. And that, of course, is very hard on him, really. And Barbarotti, I think you might say that they are both solving the case, but I mean, Barbarotti adds the extra that you need to find the murderer, I think, which is annoying, of course, to Van Veeteren.
Yeah, but I think that even though they don't know each other very well, they kind of can play the same play and same game. And in the end, when more than those two other police people from your books are also working together, it was the last action scene was very interesting because you realize that this covers that and this covers that, and it was kind of seeing two plays of Shakespeare combined together.
Yeah, sure. Why didn't Shakespeare think about this?
Othello and Macbeth.
King Lear into the same story.
What I really have always liked in Van Veeteren stories and Mardam, that they are situated in a place which is not a real place, but it is a very real place in my heart because, and I think most of the readers think the same. Nowadays, the genre called Nordic Noir has kind of adapted. Everyone has adapted a place for them to write about, and you have to be very strict. If you write about Stockholm, it has to be a real Stockholm. And in the Barbarotti books, they take place in Sweden, but it was interesting to see the so-called real Sweden and then the imaginary Mardam to be the same fictionary reality. Did you enjoy writing this or not?
Yeah, I did. It is tricky. I mean, it's because it's. I mean, there is a difference because Sweden, it does exist, whereas Mardam does not exist, of course. But it's. But perhaps it's not that complicated. It's interesting though. But I remember that in some of the Van Veeteren books, they take trips to Berlin, to Hamburg. So you know that you're in Northern Europe somewhere. They even take trips to Copenhagen, I think. So somewhere. I mean, Mardam and this country that doesn't have a name, it is somewhere in it's Netherlands, Poland, Germany, of course. It's located there. We know that in a way. So, and I think it would have been strange for Van Veeteren to take a trip to Sweden. That would have been more complicated, but it's okay when Barbarotti goes down to Mardam. That's to me it was easier to write it that way. You know, but of course it's I mean, even if you write about Finland or Sweden, you have to start lying at a certain point. I mean, you can't. I mean, I talked to Henning Mankell about this and said, well, but because he's very accurate with the Ystad, the streets, etc. But you cannot have an address in the book where somebody's actually living.
No.
You even have to invent a street or otherwise because somebody's living there, and then you put a body there or a murderer or whatever. So it's a sooner or later, if as a crime writer, you need to start fictionalizing things, lying about things, inventing things.
I think lying is one of the best things in our profession, that we can invent things. We don't have to be realistic. We can do hyperbolas and things like that. Yeah,
sure. We're free. I mean, we can invent things. Perhaps I told you I had an aunt when I was a kid of, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years old, and she said, Håkan, and she was admiring me. Håkan, you're such a good liar.
Right.
That was my aunt, but I mean, my mother didn't like that, but she was my aunt. She was saying, you're so good at lying.
Maybe you have inherited it from your aunt. Yeah. One of the many things interesting in the Left Hands League is the theme of twins. They are twin girls, Sara and Birgitte Veeteren, and even, well, their parents can, but the friends can't always say who is who. No. What made you interested in that theme?
I think, I think you agree that it's the twin situation is it's very rewarding for a writer to use twins, because I mean you're not sure that is it him or him, or is it her or her, so you can sort of I think I've used twins in other books, perhaps too much, I'm not sure, but I mean the twin situation where you have two people you don't really know, and in crime fiction the question about identity is always so important.
Yes.
And then you can hopefully even in the future, because it's getting more and more complicated being a crime writer, since we have mobile phones and you want somebody to disappear. It's very hard to disappear. I mean, if you have your mobile phone, they know where you are. If you use your credit card, they know where you are. Yes. But I mean, I use the problem of the twins in this book, and I needed it, of course. Otherwise, I couldn't have told the story in that sense at all. So, Two good-looking when they were girls, twins, and you can't tell one from the other.
For me, it was reading this book was kind of a healing process also, now to be more serious, because I have a good book, and one of them died accidentally. It was an accident, yeah. And this was kind of reading of these girls helped me to understand my friend and her feelings. So,
how old were they? The one who died, they were
18. 18.
Yeah.
So so fact and fiction kind of collided in my life, but that book helped me to understand things.
Yeah, but I mean, it's being the twin that is still alive. I mean, of course, it's. I mean, the rest of was it two girls or what was it?
Yeah, 2 girls. Yeah.
And the rest of her life is sort of missing your sister because twins are normally so very close. Yeah.
But somehow also the sister is still living in her sister.
Yeah.
Two-dimensional. This book can be classified as a crime novel or mystery, but many of your other novels are kind of unclassified, and I think it's a good thing that there is something criminal or mystery, but also very high literary aims and interesting people. How interesting is the definition of the genre to you? Or do you think that, okay, now I'm writing a crime novel, now I'm writing something else?
Well, it's I mean, what is important is to tell a good story in a way, and you tell it in a good way. But I mean, I'm not even sure whether they should put a novel or crime novel on the front cover. I'm not sure what about this one. Does it say crime novel? It probably does. I'll have a look. In Sweden, it says yes, kriminalroman in Swedish. Whereas my next book which is out, it says only roman, novel. So to me, the classification is it's not that important. The important thing is to write a good story. But I mean, if it says crime, if it is a crime novel, people are supposed there should be a crime in it, and it should be solve the crime towards the end of the book. I mean, that's the deal between the writer and the reader. So it's if it's just a novel, then you're even freer. You can say, well, this is not a crime novel, but there is a murder in it. But there are murders in Dostoevsky and Shakespeare, but they didn't write crime fiction. Perhaps they did. So,
the definition.
It's a complicated question. But a good story told in a good way, and you can call it a crime novel, or you can call it just a novel. It's up to the reader or the book dealer.
And then you have written long short stories, can I say? So when I'm talking about Cafe Intrigo, in Finnish last year, 2019, and there is 5 different stories, something combining them, and they are not short stories in that way, what we think about novels.
No.
Svenska.
Yeah, they call it. I mean, there is an English word, novella, which is supposed to be like a story that is. It's not a short story. It's not a novel. It's in between, like 100 pages or a little less than 100 pages. So it's But I think it's a good. Did you ever write novellas?
Yes, I have written one.
Yeah, because it's. I mean, the format, the size of it is, for some stories, it's very good. It's also the film length, because a film manuscript is normally like around 100 pages. So you read it in like 2 hours, perhaps, or 3-4 hours. It's a quick one. So, and some stories fit in very well in this size, I think. So it's but you never know. Do you know when you start a story how long it's going to be?
No, not really. Approximately. I know if it's a short story or novel. But
it's a short story, but I mean, could you say, if it's a novel, could you say this is going to be 250 pages or it's going to be 500?
Maybe something between 3.
But you never know when you start.
No. You have to have an adventure when you are writing.
Yeah.
It would be so stupid to know everything.
Yeah, exactly.
But Håkan, you mentioned film and film manuscript.
Yeah.
And I've read that Cafe Intrigo, there will be 3 different film productions coming from those novellas.
Yeah. And it's a very strange story, because I mean, these films, they were shot, they are ready, they were in 2017, 18 in summer, and almost nobody has seen them yet. And the problem is that I think they're out in the United States now. And the problem is that there was a Hollywood company who they're in English and they were shot in Europe, different places in Europe. And then this Hollywood company, which is not one of the real big ones, they sold the distribution rights to Miramax.
Yeah.
And that is a huge company.
Yeah.
But they have not decided how to distribute them. They are sold to the different in the United States, but then they are probably waiting for another of these paid channels to open up from Warner Brothers or whatever. But so one of them has been shown in Germany, I think, and otherwise, well, it's so stupid. I mean, because and nowadays it's a problem because I mean during to this the Corona, no film productions has been taking place because it's impossible. So these films are sort of waiting to be shown, which is
I really hope that they won't disappear somewhere. But you are not starring in them. You are not. I'm
not starring. I'm in a little like 3 seconds. I'm in
you are okay
I'm in a library sitting there trying to look like somebody reading or doing research.
Yeah, because I have seen you acting in other filmatization, dramatizations of your book.
Yeah. But I mean, acting is perhaps not acting. Being there as an extra, not really acting. Yeah.
I think you are one of the most guilty people in one crime, making a Nordic Noir so popular.
Well, you're the other one. You're another one. So yeah, and it doesn't stop. It's getting more and more popular. Nordic Noir. It's strange.
Do you think that it is an unstoppable phenomenon, or does it come kind of saturation come?
I don't know, but I mean, I noticed that I mean, Scotland, for instance, and the northern part of England now, they want to consider themselves being part of the Nordic Noir. Because, I mean, when at Shetland Islands, for instance, I went there and of course, we're in Nordic crime as well. So, I mean, you just have to wait and you see that perhaps Switzerland will be part of Nordic crime and the rest of Europe.
Estonia, maybe.
Yeah, because, I mean, the border is going south, really. So, yeah. No, it's a strange phenomenon, but because it's been around for more than 20 years now, it's very strange. I thought it would stop, but it hasn't.
But is there something combining those Nordic or Scandinavian books, or are they all different in?
Yeah, but I mean, I used to say that they were different. I mean, we are very different, but perhaps there is some. You know, I lived for a couple of years in New York, and I've been living in London, and they say that it is different from other books. I mean, if you compare them to American crime fiction, I mean, the pace, I mean, we are slower than they are in the United States. And they asked me when they liked my book, and they said, I like it, but I don't know why I like it. In a way, the reader said, and I said, perhaps it's something about tempo. It's not running as fast as because in an American crime novel you have a cliffhanger.
You invented a new.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, every chapter, and you need a new body almost, and a cliffhanger, 10 cliffhangers in a book, and we don't need that in perhaps not in Europe even. So. That's one difference. And also I know that but you like crime, at least Swedish crime fiction, for different reasons in different countries. I mean, Germany, they read Astrid Lindgren, and they have the Swedishness is seeped into their blood from very early on. They read as much Astrid Lindgren as we do in Sweden, and then
and the Japanese have read Tove Jansson, the Finnish.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Writer, so they know about Finnish culture. Yeah. But Håkan, I hope that next time when we organize this Dekkarifestivaali, crime festival, we can sit together and maybe have some kind of cliffhanger afterwards.
Absolutely, I'm looking forward to it. So when is it going to be? I'm looking forward to it already.
Next year. Thank you so much, Håkan, that you gave us time, and enjoy the Corona time because we can write. We can write. Yeah.
Continue writing. Thank you, Leena. Good to see you in this world. But we'll meet next year. We have a deal.
Tack så mycket. Yes, we have a deal.
Tack. Kiitos. Hej.
Hej.